Hi, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Dr. Philip McMillan. Thank you very much for joining me. And I'm taking on here a relatively complex topic, one that's not easy to explain, but I've taken the opportunity to try and see if I can get the concept across. Where really is the responsibility for doctors when it comes to advocating for patients? A really simple yet crucial question. Doctors have a responsibility, yes, to patients, but at the same time, doctors do have a job to do and they have to work within very strict guidelines. And why is that so? Because patients, quite rightly, and the system demands absolute safety. They don't want any errors. They don't want anything to go wrong. And therefore, if you want that degree of protection, it comes with a degree of rigidity in the system. And within that rigidity, you ask a question quite practically about where does the responsibility lie for physicians and doctors when it comes to patients? Is it just staying within the guidelines and ensuring that they're safe because their jobs matter? And so this is a really, really important question. I'm asking the question because sometimes people can ask, why do I continue to talk about COVID 19? If this was a different topic, probably I wouldn't feel so passionately about it. The reason I speak about COVID 19, even in the face of resistance, is simply because I have been given an understanding around autoimmunity that I have a responsibility to share. I can't hide it away because it's relevant to how we manage the disease and how we understand the next phase of the condition. So within that framework, I have to keep talking. But if this was something else, would I take such a strong stance? Possibly not. And so this is about who is taking responsibility for different fights that they would face. But I specifically am looking at the issue about pharma. And I'm going to share a short clip from Dr. Baber Ghauri. And he had done a very interesting podcast or interview. And one of the things that he highlighted was that he was working in the past in the pharmaceutical industry. Not only that, he then transitioned out of it to become to go into medicine that was far more holistic. So he shifted his view completely at that point. Now, within that framework, he's now giving us an insight into what he thinks is an important challenge that is coming up out of the pandemic for many, many clinicians. Listen to this, and I'll come back in a second. There was a problem, the medical fraternity would have picked it up and said something about it. And I'm saying it doesn't work like that because most clinicians, as you say, what they're very good at is complying with what we call evidence based medicine. And anything that shakes the foundation of medicine. That's why they go along. They don't actually think. Is that true?
That's 100% true. And I'll tell you, the evidence sometimes is not evidence. The vast majority, I would say 50% or more, probably 70% of the evidence, is commercials. These are commercials that I funded, as a executive at Pfizer, to advance our agenda. And it was well intended, because we believe through our own research that a lot of our medications and a lot of our, as a Pfizer person, at the time, worked. And so the funding that we provided and all of the initiatives that we took were well intentioned. But I think in the case of COVID and COVID treatments and the COVID vaccine itself, we took a detour somehow. We did not do the evidence and the research that we needed to do before prescribing this at a mass level, at a population level.
That was a very interesting insight for me when I had that conversation. As I said, you can see the full interview at the link below with the time codes. And in that framework, we recognize that yes, the industry is doing their job at promoting products that they believe in. Who is it that should challenge that understanding? Is it regulators or is it physicians? Or it's just the responsibility of physicians and doctors to follow the guidelines and allow the regulators to do the challenge? That's fundamentally the point that I think that I was raising. It's something to think about because at the end of the day, it comes at a cost challenging these things. It's not easy. And sometimes, quite truthfully, it may not be worth it. Even though the patients may say absolutely they are always worth it, if it comes at a cost where one is unable to practice, that may be too much. But it does raise a challenge for all of us within the practice of medicine that we always have to try and find solutions for patients within the frameworks and the limitations that we have. We should always advocate for patients, but also recognize the limitations that we work in. Have a great evening.